All right, Tig. We need to talk about Piers Anthony.
Piers?
Piers Anthony.
Piers Anthony.
At least I think that's how you say his first name. That's how I've always said it, Piers Anthony. He was really big for a while, and I believe he's still out there doing stuff. And as you can see, obviously I have quite a few Piers Anthony books.
Seems as if you enjoyed his literature.
I'm not proud of having all these Piers Anthony books.
Why is that?
So, Piers Anthony's a fantasy and science fiction writer who has pumped out. Geez, this is only a fraction of like his output.
Really? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, he's written probably 3-4 times as many books as he's even here. Though his biggest series is the Xanth series, which there's probably 30 or 40 books in that series, which is a pun-filled.
Puns, huh?
Puns, lots and lots of puns, pun-filled fantasy series. The thing about Piers Anthony is that, well, all right. Lots of people were into him when they were teenagers growing up. As a teenage boy, he was like appealing. And then later you get like at some point like you're reading his stuff at 12 and 13 and 14 and you're like, "Yes, I love this stuff." And then you hit a point where you're like, "This is creepy as shit." Piers Anthony is an old guy who's constantly writing titillating things about teenage girls. Even into like his 60s and 70s and 80s, constantly writing stuff about like teenage girls and their panties and all sorts of stuff. And some of his series get into like some really weird ass dark stuff, things we don't normally talk about on this channel.
And that stuff happens in the books?
Yes, not in his Xanth series, but in his other books. Okay. But even in the Xanth... Oh, I need to take these things down because it's like swaying. Even in the Xanth books, which were hugely popular, by the way, and like lots and lots of people were super into these, because they start off as like these sort of quirky fantasy books where like lots of puns and I guess in Xanth is like it's a fantasy land that is an alternate reality of Florida. Like the map is Florida.
Oh, okay.
And so there's centaurs and heroes doing various things and all that. He finally, late in the series, started to get a little more overt about his fascination. There is a book. He actually has a book in this series called The Color of Her Panties. Yeah, and this was about the time when I was like, whoa, what are you doing, dude? At the time, I grew up in a small town, and the only place where I had to get books other than like having my parents take me to the mall was like this local pharmacy. It was whatever it was, right. Rite Aid or CVS or something like that, and they had the book rack. So I would go there, and as someone who liked science fiction and fantasy, anything that they had that was science fiction and fantasy, I bought all of it.
Right.
And so his stuff was always on the shelves, and I started reading them through that because that was all that was available. And I liked I liked them initially because, like, they were kind of funny and lighthearted.
There's
and all
a little bit of humor to them.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And they were huge. Like the Xanth, obviously they were big because the guy can't crank out 30, 40 novels in a series without them doing well. I remember one of the early books. I don't remember which one it was, but he's like describing like the hero and like the female that he liked. This girl and him are like swimming, and he's describing like how buoyant her boobs were. Like it started to click with me. Like, this shit's creepy, dude. And it wasn't until much later I learned about some of his other series where he gets like into some super creeped out stuff. So like, all right, so Dragon on a Pedestal and Gollum in the Gears, and and initially like some of these early ones seemed like a lot of fun, but now when you go back, there's one. I've never read it, and I can't even remember what series it's in, but he had done one book where basically like this guy had sexual relations with a child, was made to be like the book went to these pains to explain why it was okay.
Oh, God.
By the time I was around 17 or so, around 17, I was still reading his books, but then I was like, this is kind of a little weird.
Yeah, you started to get the vibe.
Because he was an old dude, and I knew he was an old dude, and I was like, you're writing about teenage girls in like this really like super creepy way. Lots of people have had the same experience that I have, where you read them as a kid and as a teenager, and then you got a little older and you were like, wait a minute,
you start to look back on it.
Yeah, like this is a little strange. And then so we're some people are online, and that's sort of the discussion. And someone had pointed out like this other series that he did where he took it to these extremes. And I'm reading about the stuff that he had written in this other series, and I'm like, oh man, your true colors are like really flying now. In one of the books, I think in one of his author notes or something like that, don't completely quote me on this, but he's having like a correspondence, like a sympathetic correspondence with some guy who was in prison for molesting kids.
So
I think that when a person has created enough art over a long period of time, you can read a good deal of themselves in that art.
Right. Yeah, you can't help but to put yourself into it.
Right. Even subconsciously, like it happens without you realizing it.
Right. You tend to write what you enjoy, what you would want to read. It makes me think that, yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre and disappointing, because it's like, oh man, I grew up reading so many of these books. And now I look back at them, like every time I look at them on my bookshelves, I'm like, oh man, I really should just get rid of all this. But I can't get rid of books.
Right.
So like I have them and they are what they are. But I would never recommend them. And I remember buying this one and like feeling a little weird just buying it, just based on just the title, like the color of her panties. Somehow or another, knowing the color of like some princesses or something's panties would like save the day or something like that.
Oh wait, we see England, we see Xanth. Is that how you said it was pronounced?
I think Xanth. I think that's how I've
We
always
see
said.
Mila's underpants. In fact, Gwenny Goblin, Che Centaur, and Jenny Elf are just about the only creatures in Xanth who have been spared the sight of Mela Merwoman's undergarments, preoccupied as they are with helping Gwenny beat out the awful half-brother Gobble. But first, they must master space and time. Thyme.
Of course.
And find the fabulous egg that sits between the rock, ROC, and the hard place. While Mela, who would gladly relinquish her oft-viewed undies for a new husband, join the adult conspiracy and quickly discover the power of a perfect pair of panties. This is not a kid's book.
No, definitely not.
It was almost like he was trying to get caught.
And, yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, so there you go. Piers Anthony, wherever you are, you're a creep, dude.
Creepy.
You are a creep. Let me reiterate, you're a creep. And I don't mean you're a creep as in you're a weirdo, what the hell are you doing here? I mean you're a creep. You're a creep.
I'm Alakazam, the color forms man, with magical magic, you bet. So for magical toys for girls and boys, be sure when you're shopping you get color forms.